everybody! Happy time zone, whatever that may be, morning, afternoon, evening thing. It is evening here, so good evening from me. And thank you for joining tonight. And let me just, you know what, I'm just gonna jump right in and grab, hold on. Oh my gosh, where did I leave Rhonda? There's Rhonda! Okay, all right, yay! So I have here the fabulous Rhonda Parrish with me tonight. And actually, I'm just gonna see if my command works. Look at that. Oh, chat command. Yeah. Rhonda Parrish with links to stuff in the chat. And so Rhonda is an editor. Oh, wait. Can I take down my music a little bit so that y'all can hear me without quite so much excitement now that we have actual talking? There we go. Rhonda is the editor of approximately 3 zillion fantasy anthologies. She's also an author of short and long. She has edited a fiction webzine, and what haven't you done, Rhonda? Like, is it like, what? They're like all the things. She has all the industry credits. But I know Rhonda because our first collaboration was in 2014. I looked that up before we got on tonight. So we have been working together for quite a while. I don't actually even know how many stories or anthologies we've done together.
I don't know either.
That would be a fun trivia fact. But yeah, that's a lot because some of those were more than one a year. Like that was. Anyway, the point is we've worked together a lot, which is why I asked Rhonda to come and join me for this. And oh my gosh, hold on. I have too many windows open, and it is not the most efficient that I have ever done a thing in here on streaming. Rhonda gets all the props because she actually agreed to do this live editing thing just as an educational thing a few months ago. Yeah, but we didn't get around to it. And then I was going to do a story that I'll talk about here in just a second. But it was a future project, and then stuff went down in Eastern Europe, and I wanted to do a fundraiser to support, and I was like, oh, well, I'll do that story that I had been putting off. I'll move that up now, and then, oh, I'll ask Rhonda to come and do this now, and all of this. So this is now an optional charity fundraiser event as well. So please, feel free to watch, replay, all of that. Just, we're glad you're here. But if you are so moved, we are... I have a fundraiser running. All that money goes through World Vision, which is has an excellent charity rating. And neither Rhonda nor I touch any of that money. I just provide the link in the chat, and you can donate if you like. And it has nothing to do with. I never touch it. It's fine. So anyway, if you are here and you would like to participate, that's great. And then there are tons of. I've got a whole blog post. I will be doing giveaways and things related to that. And I'll just actually I have a command for that too. So I don't have to remember these things. Ta-da! There's links right there. Okay. Like magic. It's so magic. Speaking of magic, actually, let me go back and pick up on the Rhonda bio that I distracted myself out of. There's one of the 3 zillion anthologies is the latest one, which is Untethered. Can that see in the chat or in the video there? I think so. Yeah, and there it is in glorious paperback. Yes, and this is. I'm in it, so that's most of what you need to know. And then Rhonda edited it. And no, actually, this was one of your Patreon projects, right? Do you want to give us a 2-sentence rundown on how that worked, or?
Okay, it was one of my Patreon projects. So I asked my patrons to vote on what project they wanted me to do next. This was a few years ago, and then they chose. I'd done an anthology a while back called Equus. And they wanted a sequel to Equus, but more of a sibling than a twin. So we earmarked a percentage of my Patreon funds that came in and put it aside to pay for the anthology. And once we hit the goal, then the anthology happened. So that one 100% would not have happened without my Patreon. And it's been a lot of fun to start something in that particular way where I say, here are 5 ideas, which one do you want to see? And they pick and
yeah, how fun is that?
guide it through.
Yeah.
It was pretty fun.
And I have not had a chance to read through it yet, because if I had time, I would have finished this thing. But anyway, I know that I know that there's some really good stuff in there. I just haven't gotten through all of it yet. So there we go. We will leave that for discovery here in the near future. And what was the next thing? Oh, the other magic thing. So how all this started. Let me see if I can grab here. I went to a geology show, and I found this, which is a dagger carved from selenite, and which is ridiculously impractical as a weapon because selenite is super soft. Like, it's a 2 on the Morse scale. It's super, super soft, but it looks darn cool. And so I looked at this and I was like, oh, I need to write a story about a dagger, selenite. The dagger is made out of moonlight. This will be cool. And so that just became a thing that I was going to do. I was like, oh, and I'll get the dagger, and then I'll use it as a giveaway when I do the story. And then that whole process actually ended up becoming this fundraiser. It just got moved up, which is why I'm scrabbling for everything right now, because I didn't prep it, because, Putin didn't consult me before on his timetable. Anyway, so that's why we're getting that and doing the fundraiser now. But that's where this story came out of, that Rhonda is going to get her mitts on here tonight. And while we're doing that, I just have a real quick rundown of notes before we get started that I don't know, my lawyer made me say these or something. So mostly, like, I'm nervous. Rhonda's going to edit my work live for an international audience on stream for replay for forever. I mean, it's weird. Okay, it's real weird. So somebody said, "Oh, you're so brave." A number of people told me, "Oh, you're so brave," and I was like, actually, I'm just kind of thinking of this as like, if you've ever seen the dunk tanks that people do for charity, like, this is what I'm doing right here. This is just the dunk tank for charity. But I also know that I have been a creative person for a while, and I have known many creative people, and I know how creative people can sometimes work. So I just want to run down a few things. One, I wrote nearly all of the draft we're about to see live on stream, which is not at all where I do my best work. I am not a coffee shop writer. I am a sit in my dark hole and no touch nothing with no sound writer. So working on stream where people are watching is, it's not how I work well. So on the flip side, I generally write cleaner, heavy air quotes, rough drafts than a lot of my colleagues that I know. And so I guess where I'm going with that here is, it does not matter what shape the rough draft is, and I don't want anybody looking at this and trying to compare in any direction. This is better than, this is worse than, this is whatever. This is your mental health reminder that we don't care what the rough draft looks like, we care what the final draft looks like. And there we go. So if you look at this and you think, oh wow, that's not what my rough drafts look like, is something wrong? No. And if you look at this and go, dear God, why did she let that get put on screen? Hey, you know what? That's why you're at home where I can't see you and you can have all the popcorn you want, okay? And just please donate $5 and we'll call it good. So here we go. All right. So yeah, there's a whole continuum of drafts, and I just wanted to reiterate that point. So the other thing that I did not do for poor Rhonda, who, by the way, we have done zero setup on this. Like, we set a date. We haven't discussed this in any way, shape, or form. I don't even know what format we're going to see for editing. This is going to be fun. But the other thing is, because this was not as planned as it could have been, poor Rhonda does not have a complete story. She has, what did I get? Did I give you? I gave you some thousands of words, but I don't.
6,400.
6,400 words. Cool. Okay. But we are not going to be able, she's not going to be able to comment on how I stick the landing for a story arc or anything like that, or how my character's arc resolves or anything, because she doesn't have it, and that's on me. But we'll get through what we get through. And if you are here and you have questions, on the editing process or what you're seeing Rhonda comment on or anything at all, I have the chat open. Throw them at me and I will collate them and bring them up to Rhonda when she is not mid-thought. And that might be quite often because I have no idea how this is going to go. This is going to be so much fun.
We'll find out together.
All right, yeah. So I need to point out, because we are doing this live on stream, and yeah, it's just going to be like, hey, take apart my manuscript. I do have an emotional support turtle. And because it is me, it is an emotional support chocolate turtle. So this is going to get me through whatever happens here tonight. So, all right. With that, Rhonda, how do you want to get started? Do you have anything? Do you have any legal disclaimers to put out or anything?
I think you covered most of the broad strokes. So full disclosure, I did quickly read through this. I didn't start editing anything, but excuse me. For example, my first read of things I like to read to find out what the story is, so that I can't get distracted by that when I'm editing, waiting to find out what it is. So if this had been a complete story that was submitted to me, I would have read the entire thing and then shortlisted it, probably, if I was going to be editing it again. And then later, when I was editing it for real, I would already know what the story is about, so I wouldn't be so prone to get distracted. So I like to do the first read kind of with no notes and no virtual pen, and I didn't think everybody would want to watch me read. So
the most exciting stream of all time. Eyeballs left to right.
Yeah. Why'd she laugh there? That's not supposed to be funny. But like you said, you do write first drafts that are cleaner than a lot of people's. For better or for worse, for the spirit of this, because there's, if it's really rough, I have lots of things that I can sort of comment on, and if it's cleaner, then we get to comment on more sort of in-depth kind of things. But yeah, don't compare Laura's rough draft to your rough draft.
Don't compare one rough draft from the same author to another rough draft from the same author. Like, there are days. We have days. Yeah.
When we first talked about doing this, I was like, yeah, we could edit, I could edit something of yours and you could edit something of mine, and add the same thing. I was just thinking, well, which one would I ask you to critique or whatever? And I was like, oh, well, not that one. No, maybe she could look at this one, but not that one.
And actually, let's talk on that for just a second, because again, we're both in the creative community. We know how writers work, and most of us are not rolling around in Scrooge McDuck's quantities of cash. It sounds really funny to say, oh no, this story's too bad to edit. Like this. No, that's why it needs it. But also, there's a lot to be said for doing as much editing as you can before it goes to an editor. And so if you're paying for professional feedback, you get it as good as you can, so you'll get the maximum value for that. They don't have to take care of the low-hanging branches. They can get really specific stuff. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you're approaching this from a first pass editor or from a acquisitions editor, or you can probably have multiple hats and just tell us what you're doing as you go. But so anyway, there we are.
Okay, so there are, just to address that really quickly, there are going to be a few. Actually, I think it's mostly just based on my quick read through, and this is subject to change when I'm reading through it with my editor hat on. But I think it's mostly going to just be sort of big picture things, not you need a comma here.
Yeah, I usually write fairly clean grammar. That is something that, not to say I never go back and find, I used the wrong word or whatever, but just that is one of the things that I do in cleaner drafts. But frequently I go back and I'm like, well, this was a subplot that needed to die, and so I'll spend time cleaning that up. So, yeah.
And because I don't have a whole story, I might have a few questions for you. And it might be worth knowing, if you're paying someone to edit something and they have questions for you, then that's, if you sent them the whole thing and they have questions for you, then that's a problem, because your reader's not going to have you there to ask questions. So if I say to Laura, is this going to be important later? You know, she can answer that because I don't have the entire story. But if your reader reads something and is like, gets to the end of the something and is like, is this, but that wasn't important, then that'll be a problem. Yeah. So it's a little different than how it would otherwise be.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I don't know, like this, I think I mentioned to you when I sent you that what I had is this really is turning into, it wants to be a novella, and I don't know if anybody wants to sit through a novella editing anyway, so it's probably good that we don't have that much length, but yeah, and I don't have it done yet, and I'm a discovery writer, so you may ask me a question, I'll be like, that's a great question, I'll let you know when I find out. That's also how I work, so yeah.
It's sort of jumping right in, actually. I feel you're correct. I feel like it's definitely going to be at least a novella, because there's no way you can tie this up in a short story length. It's just not going to happen.
Nope. Unless I get done and then I'm like, oh, now that I know the point of it, I can cut out 4,000 words, because that also can happen. I just had to wander around until I found out what the story was about, but yeah.
I've also definitely had that. I've written novels where I had to cut the first 5 chapters and then a subplot or whatever. Like, it just
happens. Oh, that's just default. Yeah. So, okay. Well, do you want to pull up, throw up some words on the screen, and I'll get my emotional support turtle cuddled close, and then we'll do. I do love this layout where I can just be like, you know, no, don't change that, you know.
Only say nice things. Okay. This is a little weird.
It's weird. I need to kill my camera so you can feel like you're alone?
No, it's fine. I don't usually talk to myself when I edit, so I still wouldn't feel. One thing, I'm trying to figure out how to structure this, if I should just start talking about this, or if I should get to the point that I know I'm going to make. So I'm just going to actually skip ahead to the point that I'm going to make, and that is, I'm not sure that this book starts in the right place. It starts with Kova crouching in reeds at the riverside, afraid of crocodiles, and then watching a murder, basically. And then it switches point of view to Nariman, who is a stowaway on a boat, who also watches the same murder and flees the boat, and then they meet up together. I think the story actually begins where they meet up together. I think it actually begins in chapter 2, because now we get to just watch me scroll around. Because I don't think that the real sense of urgency and drama and tension came for me in chapter 2. In chapter 1, we have 2 passive, like, people who are passively watching stuff happen, and in chapter 2 we have them actually engaged in the stuff that is happening and dealing with it in a hands-on way. So chapter 1 really helps set the scene, and I get an idea for like where we are and what the sort of dangers are, but I think that you can sort of sprinkle all of that throughout the rest without starting there. And I assume that the murder is going to be important. That's the thing I was saying. I'm going to have to ask you if this is important later. I assume that's going to be important, but it's not yet. So if you started the book at chapter 2, as I scroll down to find it, you could just hint there, like, why Kova had stayed out so long. And we could have some sort of hint that was why, I'm sorry, I forgot his name, Nariman, why he's, part of the reason why he's hiding in the barn. But the menace that happens in chapter 2 is much more interesting to me than the sort of passive observation of this thing that happens in chapter 1. So we can we can go over chapter 1, but I would suggest not using it and just sort of filtering that throughout the rest of the story.
So I totally agree with you, and just like on the how this happened, if I had not sworn an oath to myself that I was not going to change anything before sending it to you, it wouldn't have been there. Chapter 1 was me sitting down going, I have a person. She's by a river. There's a boat. We have friction between these different people groups. Oh, somebody just got killed on the boat. Okay, so yeah, I think that birder's probably going to be relevant later because it probably will be. But yeah, that was just me feeling my way through the world, and then stuff started happening. So yeah, 100% agree with you.
And some of your descriptions are fantastic, and I don't usually recommend flashbacks, but for some of those descriptions it might be worth putting some flashbacks in, just like a flash of the crocodiles, and then a flash of like with the man in the river, and then a flash of, I'm curious about the water horses. I'd like to see I actually see them on the page instead of hear about them.
Okay.
So what do you think? Should we just start editing at chapter 2, or should we go back up to 1?
Well, I mean, unless there's anything like if there's a really nice piece of description you want to point out in chapter 1 and say why it's nice, I guess. Or you can be like, yeah, this is a whole lot of world building, and then we actually need plot. Then that's also a complete statement. So.
Okay. Well, here is an actual really good bit of description. It sets the scene of just like quiet, and then a complete frenzy and chaos, and I really liked that. When I read it, before I knew that I was going to say I don't think that this starts in the right place, I was going to say you might want to cut this part, this one particular sentence, because it felt a little bit like a bit of a distraction. But I was conflicted about that, because at the same time, him not having the breath to scream is an interesting detail that explains why it's sort of like a really like a quiet, like this man died horribly, but also silently, except for the thrashing of the water, which I really love that image. So the not having the breath to scream thing works, but and helps feed that. Oh, I think I know why it's bugging me a little bit, because she doesn't necessarily know that's why he's not screaming. It's a potential point of view issue.
Okay.
But you don't want to say, but she thought he probably didn't have the
right.
That would
thinking back to when she had a conversation with Uncle Joe about how crocodile attacks happened. Yeah.
He said that sometimes people didn't have... Yeah. Don't do that. But I do really love this paragraph. And it would make a really good flashback, because it's just a moment. So you're not pulling the reader out of whatever for a long time and then potentially dragging them back to the present. You're just like, she can have a nightmare, or she can just see it. Or ideally, if they find the man's body or parts of his body, that would be a good time for her to flash back to it.
Okay. I like that.
I'm waiting for Norman. Oh, there we go. Norman's gone. Okay. Kova had stayed out too long. It was falling dark. If you start here, you probably don't want to start with that sentence, because it's not the strongest hook. But it does remind me, I wasn't actually sure why she was out. I assumed she was staying out because she was going to guard and make sure that none of these people who were going by on the river were going to steal from her family. But I wasn't positive that was
Okay.
a thing. But it could be because I read it quickly. But
I don't think I specified why she was out. Like, in my mind, she was out doing farm chores, and they just paused to hide from the people and then kept on doing farm chores. But I don't think I ever actually said that, so you are forgiven for not knowing it.
Oh, the half moon. That's going to be important. I'm just going to highlight that so that I remember in case I wouldn't highlight it if I was editing this and sending it to you. Well, I would, but I would take it back out again before I sent it to you. But it's just to remind myself. It was falling dark in the half moon. I love the idea of the ghost eye, and the fact that she has an imperfection is keeping her from being married, which is obviously the norm in her village. Tells us a lot about her village just in that one sentence, so that's really nice. Sorry, we get to watch me read some more.
It's okay, we have music to cover the awkward silence.
Good. Let's see. That is fine. It's just I put in a ton of that's into my story that are unnecessary, so I take them out anytime I can, even if it's not my story. No, I want to keep it actually. Nope. I meant to say reject. Oh, for goodness sakes. Accept. Thank you. Oh, that's what I kept reading the paragraph over and over trying to figure out what the thing was that was making it not flow smoothly for me. And I think it's this. It's probably best that she not think about the thing she's going to do and then do it. Just do the thing.
Just do the thing.
So, yeah. I mean, that's not the most elegant way of doing it, but. Turn this side. How do you... I guess my question here would be, how does one know that night has fully fallen?
It just got darker. It's more darker.
It's really dark now.
It's more darker-er.
I'm also highlighting this, and I wouldn't send you it with that highlight in it, but I feel like you used imprecations more than once, because I'm reading it now and it's like tweaking in my memory. It's an uncommon enough word that if it is used more than once, it's gonna stand out a little bit awkwardly. But it's possible that I only think it's used more than once because I've read this already today. So I'm just gonna highlight it.
We'll see.
And then when I get done, before I send it to you, I would just do a search and see if it was there.
Okay. Yeah, I have no memories of whether it's there, so yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. The woven walls of the barn. So then I'm like, oh, what is it woven with? Is it like reeds? Is it wood? It's very interesting. And also potentially very world building, right? That's not a thing that you see nowadays in North America, at least not in my experience. So
would you want to see that is reeds now, or because
maybe just when it's light out?
Okay.
Or I mean, yeah, I mean you could fit it in now pretty elegantly too. I don't think it suffers from me not knowing.
That was where I was going. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it works. I'm intrigued. I'm not like annoyed at not knowing. I'm just intrigued by the idea. The door was closed. I really like that this sentence is a paragraph of its own because it makes it stand out. But I kind of want it to just be the door was closed instead of the door was closed now. But like I wanted to make it like crunchier.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if it works with just taking the now out. Oh, I think maybe it will actually. Because why is my track changes not on? Oh, actually, that might be worth pointing out. I do all of my track changes and my comments and stuff in blue rather than red because I had one of my authors reacted. She said she had negative feelings about the color red, and if she saw it on her document, it was very discouraging for her. And you know, editing's not supposed to be discouraging,
right?
So I don't know if that's a thing that is common with a lot of people. But
I think we've all had the elementary school experience of red ink, so yeah, I can see that.
So if you're critiquing things for friends or whatever, I mean, maybe just changing the color. It's a small thing, but it seems to help some people.
Like, I hear you, and that makes sense, but I'm pretty sure that when I said we were going to do this stream, I promised people red ink. So I don't know, just we'll see.
I can't change it back because I don't remember how.
It's stuck now. It's fine. It's blue. Okay.
There, you get blue. If his lecherous fool of a son had brought another girl out of sight. ... I know what this means, but I think had brought. I'm wondering if there's a more elegant way of saying had brought another girl out of sight.
There positively is. I hated that sentence, but I promised myself I was not changing anything. So, yeah.
Right. There we go. Like, it's clear what you mean, but.
Bridger says they also have a really strong negative association with red, and my editor uses a cheerful pink, which I think is great.
Nice. I used to have purple for a little while, but actually I guess my highlighting thing here is kind of purple. I've been playing a lot of D&D on Roll20. I just tried to like ping that by like holding my mouse down, and it didn't work. I was like right here. I was just about to say, well, maybe we can cut this part here, because we want to get to the dude. We don't necessarily want to spend time on the details about the lamp. But I changed my mind. I'm only mentioning it to explain. But I changed my mind because I think it's important to the world building and the setting to point out that there are sandstorms. You're not worried about snowstorms. You're worried about sandstorms, and that also helps you imagine the greater world. So,
okay,
I think that's good.
I was also trying to like desperately explain in my head why there was a lamp there for him to light, so that was where that came from. So,
yeah, and it's important later. So it's
yes.
Knees soft. Is that speaking about her posture? Like she's not. Okay. I don't dislike it, but I had to ask you about it.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah, and I'm going for, she's poised, ready for action kind of a thing. But yeah, the fact that you had to ask is information. So.
You shouldn't be here. I know, he answered, surprising her. She had not expected agreement. I mean, I don't want you to... I'm not suggesting you change this necessarily. I like it. But it is saying the same thing twice. It surprised her because she didn't expect it. So you could pick one or the other.
Okay.
But it's not necessarily, bad the way it is either. And that's a potential point of view issue. Because we are in her point of view, right?
Yes.
I had to scroll up to check. So like, and did we switch to his? Where's... I'm just trying to figure out if it's like a shared point of view thing or if it's just her, but it looks like it's just her. So that potentially is a bit of a point of view issue because she wouldn't necessarily know that that was the case, but she could infer it. Could she see the river from the barn?
In my mind, yes. I don't know. I didn't lay that out. So yes.
Yeah, I guess this is actually chapter 1 if you cut chapter 1, so it doesn't actually... You can place the river wherever you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
This is funny because he literally fled a boat that was dealing with a river horse. But she doesn't know that, so... There are no jackals in the... Oh, fields. I think better to just, don't supply the answer, just hide from what, and then we get to the fun bit.
Okay.
Although, I've read this, but I'm not sure I know what caused this sound.
I don't either.
Oh, okay.
I may have mentioned I'm a discovery writer. Yeah.
Oh,
I
feel that...
That's pantsing for people who like to be a little more blatant about it. Yeah. So I go back and I figure out what made the noise. Yeah.
I'll just make a note of that for you.
Yes.
Or just use a different noise. Although, given what we're about to encounter, I don't know what you would use. I think just figure out what made the noise.
Yeah. Well, and again, I'm writing this and, literally making stuff up as I go. And so at that point, I knew stuff was about to come down, but I didn't know how it was going to manifest. So it's real experience being me as I write a scene like this. So that's why this usually gets a lot of editing.
I write very similarly in that I figure stuff out as I go. And yeah, sometimes I don't know what the plot is at all. And I have to retroactively add that in later. Like, here's a bunch of stuff that happened, and now I need to find a plot to connect it all.
And now this is how this works. Oh, this is what this story's about. Oh, yeah.
But the fun part of that is that you get the moments of, when you can actually connect something from the very beginning to something in the end.
Yeah, no, that's the really fun stuff. And but yeah, I have friends who are excellent outliners, like sit down and everything's color coded and they know there are going to be this many chapters and chapter 32 is going to have 5 scenes and it's going to be 1,700 words or, you know, whatever. And I'm just like, did you sacrifice a goat? Like, how do you do that? And that's just a total mystery to me, but yeah.
Yeah, I feel that pain. Oh. Nope. Yeah, I feel the same way. I enjoy those moments of when actually, you know, it took me, I think we've talked about this on your stream before, but it took years and years and years of doing this to get to the point where I'm just able to trust myself that if I start the thing, I will figure it out by the time I finish the thing.
Yes.
And it's taken a long time to get there, but
yeah, you know, there's a story in there. That's why it started, but it's just going to be a discover. I get to read it too. I don't know where it's going either. Yeah. So.
And once I actually figure it out, endings are really hard for me because once I've actually figured out the story, then I'm less compelled to write it because I know it now.
Yes.
I know how it ends.
That's why, you know, I've heard some people say that's why they can't outline, because once they know where it's going, okay, now the story's told, they're done.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite to that degree, but I see where that happens. Yeah. So
back to this really quickly. I don't like these 2 sentences separated. I don't feel like there's a flow between them, so I'm just making a suggestion to combine them.
okay.
I like how she's like, "What is that?" Like he's actually gonna know the
he
answer.
knows, yeah. He knew enough to come in here. Fine. Yeah, he'll work it out.
Then why are we hiding? Why are you hiding from it? I also like that. What does that mean? I don't know. Not this particular conversation, so maybe I shouldn't bring it up until we get to the conversation, but there are a couple of points in here that I felt like they were talking specifically so that you could figure out the answer to their questions. And the readers probably don't need to watch the process there. We can just get to the end once you've figured it out.
Okay.
But you probably knew that and you just weren't changing anything. Can't you feel it? I'd like a little bit more description of this because it's gonna be important. So just, I understand that we're like right in the middle of, they heard a sound and they're trying to understand the sound, and then he's like, I don't know, I could feel it coming. Oh, wait. He didn't see anything.
Good point.
So, actually, and she doesn't, we don't know that the thing that he's hiding from is the sound. He shouldn't be here, I know, but I had to hide. From what? What is that? I don't know. I like this conversation, so I don't want to suggest taking it out, but I think you might need to insert something that makes it, maybe you need, maybe what you need before this conversation is for her to feel it, for her to feel the oily feeling, the whatever, the change, and then say, what is that? You don't even necessarily need a sound. She can just be like, that, what is that feeling? That's not okay. And then he can be like, I don't know, man. It's what I was trying to hide from. I don't know how to note that here. I'm not usually talking to people while I'm editing their stuff.
Yeah, sorry. I know it's like completely throwing off your normal groove too. Just throw in a "she feels it here" note, and I'll interpret that per our conversation. Just...
There we go. So, a little pool of oil in the clay lamp rippled. If it's a clay lamp, can they see the oil? Is it like a clay thing with a wick coming out?
There are, yes, there's like a saucer with a wick part. There's probably actual terms for that, but yeah, it's like a very shallow bowl with a little channel where the wick goes.
Gotcha. I was sort of imagining more of like a hurricane lamp, and that I'm like, well, if that was clay, then you wouldn't be able to see that, but that's totally wrong world. Got it. They had it. Just to refresh my memory, he was sitting close beside the lamp. I don't know if there's an elegant way to do it, but if you can find an elegant way to say, like, the lamp is literally on the ground. So this is like a Jurassic Park, potentially, like, I mean, it's not, but yeah. You know what I mean?
Right. It actually went through my head at the time. I'm like, oh no, are people going to think this is Jurassic Park? Because, it's not. But I don't want to pull in a cultural, such a cultural iconic touchstone kind of thing. But
well, I mean, the good news is if they do think that, they won't think it for very long. So it could be a nice, like, I think this is that. Oh no, it's a totally different thing. But if you're really worried about it, you couldn't really just make the flame move, because then it would just be like, it must have been a wind or something, in a way that...
Yeah.
They had it, but Kova saw the stranger's shadow leaping on the viscous rather than dancing. I'm staring at this and contemplating changing it to begin to spread, or just not deleting that. Kova saw the stranger's shadow leaping on the wall behind him, smoothed and slowed, viscous rather than dancing, begin to spread. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that one. The good part about being the editor and not the author is I can make these suggestions, and it's not up to me whether somebody accepts them. So if you're like, no, I don't like that, then that's fine. I don't have to make the final decision.
Yeah, so I look at that, and I'm gonna actually push back a little bit here, because as I'm looking at this, the smoothed and slowed begin to spread. Those are the verbs that need to match, not her seeing it. She didn't see it begin to spread. She saw it smooth and slow and begin to spread. Does that make sense? Verbally speaking.
It does make sense. Just let me reread it again. I'm going to undo all of this and reread it again.
Okay.
Because I'm
And while you were doing that, I will just do an informative backstory. So when Rhonda has sent me edits on stuff that has been accepted, but still goes through an editing process after acceptance. That's why they're called editors. Then all this happens in the in the comments on the Word doc. This needs to be this, but it's this way for this reason. Then either okay or but I said, and so that all of that I think it's actually pretty normal and usually pretty civilized. So
yeah, I think that some people feel like writing or editing is antagonistic, and that's I don't think that's a healthy way of looking at it.
It shouldn't be. Yeah, like.
I hear what you're saying, but I'm still like, I keep going over and over this. I think the solution for me might be to make it 2 sentences.
Yeah, like it doesn't have to stay in this format. Absolutely no. It can be better.
So another benefit of being the editor, not the author, is I can just say I stumbled over this, so maybe just take another look at it.
I don't like this. Fix it. Your problem now. Yeah.
Well, the problem is I do like it, because if I didn't, I could just take it out, or suggest that you take it out. I really like the image of the shadow smoothing and slowing and becoming kind of liquid, rather than air, for lack of a better description, and the fact that it is growing as it does that. I love that. And it's possibly because I've read it like 8 times now.
Yeah, but no, I agree. It's not
over.
the smoothest sentence, and I can absolutely go back and work on that. Yeah.
That's gonna be bugging me for a little while. She drew the knife from her belt. Is this the glowy knife?
No, this is boring old ordinary knife.
Okay. Then that's cool. If it was the glowy knife, I was going to be like, we should maybe pause there.
Yeah.
But since it's not. I'm going to say, can you rephrase this to avoid using the word shadow so closely together? It's tough because the whole point is about the shadows, but we've got shadows in the previous paragraph, and
yep.
Well, but does she really have a reason to think he's a saboteur now? Maybe. She doesn't know him. She doesn't need to trust him. That's fine. This is totally a detail that I really appreciate, because even now when I'm carrying a knife anywhere, it's like I hear my mother's voice in my head say, like, point side down in case you fall. So details like that I really like, and especially since when we meet her mother later, spoilers, they seem like her mom seems really supportive and like the kind of person who would just like drill that sort of stuff. Like, yeah. They stopped, almost looking at each other, but afraid to meet one another's eyes and admit they had just run from dancing shadows. I like that. This, again, potentially is maybe a POV thing, because she doesn't really know why he's not meeting her eyes, but she knows why she's not meeting his eyes, so she can infer that, potentially. Kova saw his... I don't know the characters well enough to have totally internalized their names, So, and Kova saw his shadow still growing. I might, for a moment, think that that meant Kova in the oh my goodness, what is his name?
Narman.
Thank you. So if we just make it super clear, then I'm not, because I don't want to get pulled out even for a second to just think, is that, oh no, that's the other one.
Yeah.
And even as she pointed, he recoiled from something behind her. I love that image. And then I know we're saying did dash. It's a callback to when she thought he was going to, but I just want him to do the thing.
Okay.
He dashed the lamp and stomped out the flame, putting out the light entirely. And I like that they aren't sure if that was the right, like, was that good, or did we just now give our enemy an advantage? And also, I really like that what they are dealing with is, it's kind of exactly the right amount of wrong. Right? It's not like a giant like monster that's drooling with like dripping gore and whatever that's come out and attacking them. And it's not like, oh, there was a weird noise. It's like shadows don't do that thing and they are doing that thing and it's not okay. I like this. I think it hits that note really well.
Okay.
She could see no shadows. The moon. Oh, hey, yeah, there we go. That was the thing. That was why I was marking the half moon earlier, because we're gonna come back to that. The moon casts shadows. And I like that they're blaming the lamp. Like, that lamp's not okay. I'm not sure that we would go from the shadows are doing stuff that shadows aren't supposed to do to, yeah, but what were you doing in my barn? I feel like that's a digression that she wouldn't necessarily make.
Okay.
Now, this explanation could make it work. They'd come with him anyway, whatever they were. The desire to blame him. Yeah, actually, you know what? That's fine. I would keep the barn thing because this explains it and makes it work.
Okay.
So. And I like if he'd felt the things before he hit the light. To guess whether the air was oily. I think
Guess is the wrong word.
Well, yeah, I was actually just gonna say, I think that where I said earlier that I would like, instead of one sentence description about how she felt the oiliness, I'd like two. I think that this goes back to that, because then I would be able to easier understand what that meant.
Okay.
What does that feel like? I like lighting the grass on fire because they have nothing else to light. Although when I first read this, I went, oh, that's gonna like be really bad, and then it wasn't really bad. So like, because the grass could be dry and it could catch and they could start a fire, but they're like, we have immediate problems and we don't care if this starts a grass fire.
And they're right on the riverbank, so it's probably nice damp grass. So
yeah, probably.
We'll hope. For story purposes, it's good.
It's fine. Stop stressing, Rhonda.
Or stress, but
Oh, I like this. They're dealing with shadows, so she's looking for anything that might be just a little bit wrong. I like that. This might be worth moving up, but no, actually. So for the sake of discussion, I was thinking about like doing something like that, but actually that might work, but I'm not sure it actually greatly improves anything, so it might not be worth trouble. I was just thinking that they're talking about the darkness and the oil being gone. Yeah, no, that's probably fine. I was thinking it might have been like there might have been a little bit of an interruption and the flow would be improved a little bit if it was moved up. But looking at it now, I don't think that I try not to make any suggestions if I don't think it's actually gonna like if it's like this or that is both equally fine. I tend to lean toward just leaving it be because I think writers have good instincts for the most part. The thing. And this is good. I'm reading it. I have no feedback. I had to just remind myself that I'm not just reading this as a story and I'm on a stream and I have to maybe talk on occasion. It's good. Yay. I think you may need to look at this little bit just super briefly to see if you can take one of those instances of the word arm out.
Okay. Because the repetition is a little bit distracting. Okay. I love this description though. Of his fingers going through the thick dark, like dragging through muddy water. And you know what's interesting is when I read that out loud, dragging through muddy water, I clicked to muddy water, but when I read it inside my head, I was thinking more like the silt at the bottom of a riverbed, like the actual mud. I like silty better. Yeah.
I just think it's interesting. I had the two different images when I read it in my head and then when I said it out loud. The congealed darkness is nice. One of my biases is I really like, there's a lot of shadows in my own personal writing, so I might be biased to like this a lot, but I do like it a lot. And I like this distinction. They weren't creatures of darkness, they were creatures of shadow.
I really liked, again, I had no idea where this was going when I started it, but I really liked the idea of you have to hide in the dark from these dark creatures because, like, it turns out that the way we shelter ourselves from the dark is actually what gives them power. And I was like, oh, that's really good. Somebody came up with that. That was like, good job, somebody, And so, yeah, I found that was fun.
I really like that. And actually that brings up a thing. I've highlighted a couple of points in here about the moon, but when they, spoilers, when they put out the fire, the shadow things go away. They don't re-attack them for the rest of the night. But you have made the point that the moon casts shadows. So you might want to consider having it on a night with no moon. Just to...
on my mental list of things to explain and fix. Yep. So
just to take that away.
Yep.
Because I also love moon shadows as imagery, so I'm like, And then later, you know, they're going to be dealing with these things for a while. So if they go through, you know, the period with no moon, then they can be out later and have to deal with the moon shadow creatures, and that will be interesting. And maybe they're different from the fire shadow creatures. I don't know. I want to dislike this sentence, but I don't. I want to dislike it because of the and the, but I don't. I think it actually works. Oh. Oops, didn't mean to do that. We'll just highlight that for moon stuff later. Just clarifying who he is.
Okay.
Do we switch to his point of view again?
In the future? At some point?
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know where. I think so.
I was just thinking, we don't know what the actual, like, what that felt like, the shadow attacking him. We don't know what the deeper implications of that are. And that might be interesting to know. I don't know if you, I mean, if you have a chance to sneak his point of view in sooner rather than later for another reason, that might be a nice thing to have that information.
Okay.
I mean, you could also just have him tell her, but that's a bit different. If there's like a lingering ache or a cold, or like, that's the sort of thing I would imagine. That probably comes better firsthand than second.
I think we're going to be in his head again tomorrow morning when they get back to the village, so we can do it then.
Perfect. I love this, like you were saying. She wants to, like, go to where it's safe, but all of those things are light. So that's not going to work very well.
It's really fun being a total pantser because I don't ever get to take credit for cool things that show up. I'm just like, oh, that's neat, you know, and it wasn't me who came up with it, right? It just showed up. So,
thanks, brain.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued by the other night. And by the time I was done reading what you sent me, I had a vague idea of what that was, but only really vague, and it actually just hooked me further, and I wanted to keep reading to find out more of that. It wasn't like an irritating, I don't know this thing.
Okay.
This is kind of awkward. There's nothing wrong with it. It just, I sort of stumbled over it. And it could be in part because I'm talking while I'm reading, but it might be worth another look. How's your turtle doing?
I just had my first bite. Like, I hadn't needed as much emotional support turtle as anticipated, so it was good, but it's pretty good.
I'm glad to hear it. You said you could put them in the water. Have they had this conversation already?
haven't actually even reread this, so I don't know.
I don't think they have, but he did, obviously think that it was the lamp, and then it wasn't the lamp. So she shouldn't necessarily think he knows the answer to this question, but maybe she's panicked enough she's not really thinking clearly. I don't think there's an action item here that I would highlight, but it might be something to keep in mind when you revise that they may have already covered that.
MumGyver, which is just an awesome user handle, by the way, says this is very valuable as I have editing to do also. So yay! Thank you.
Yay!
That is the goal.
So, actually, we can just, there is nothing wrong with what I just suggested cutting, except that I think you cover the same ground twice here. I think that this basically says the same thing as this. And in this case, you probably want to go with the shorter version. So that's why I suggest trimming the top bit and keeping the second bit.
Okay.
I need to pace. I can't sit down. I can't deal with this. I can't stand still. I just, like, shadows just tried to attack me. And now you're telling me that it's like fairy tale monsters. I like that she's like, no. And I like that he's like, no. I'm not pranking you. This isn't, it's not, it's real. And it really, really works for that to come from him, because he's the one that was actually physically attacked. Like, she was in that space, but she wasn't actually the one who was touched. So his being like to the point and like kind of stern about this totally fits. It was an imperfect plan. When I first read this, I was thinking, well, when she was like, I'm sorry I cut you this section, when I was reading this, I thought, oh, I'm probably going to suggest that Laura trim that. And then I got to this and I was like, nope, it's good. Because that made me laugh for real. And if you have the reader hooked enough to evoke any kind of emotion, especially laughter, I think, then it's probably worth keeping. And it gave her a chance to get a little bit of release too. Mm-hmm. And I like her hesitation before taking his hand and giving her name. She's just like, okay, we've been through some stuff in the past 5 minutes, but I did find you hiding in my barn in a really suspicious kind of way. So, okay. I really like this sentence. And off the top of my head, I can't think of an elegant way to do it, but if there is an elegant way to start chapter 2 with something like this, especially since Kova is coming away from having seen a man getting eaten by a crocodile. I mean, the reader doesn't know that yet, but you know that, and she knows that. It also works here as an opening to chapter 3. Please don't think I'm like suggesting that like you need to move this, but I think it's a really good hook. So if you can't figure out a nice, really juicy way to hook the readers for the start of chapter 2, then something like bumping this up could work.
Okay.
But then of course you don't have your segue to this.
and this was just me wandering around trying to figure out how this world worked. So again, that's why none of it is terribly connected. So
Right. Yeah, I was actually going to suggest that this, which is important, obviously, to the history of the world and to your story building, but I was going to suggest either it should be, I don't like prologues, but either it should be like a prologue type thing at the beginning, or it should just be seeded throughout the story. Because it did feel like you were just trying to figure it out as you
totally was trying to figure it out. And most specifically, I was writing it live on stream, and I was having that awkward moment where I'm just staring at a blank screen, and that's all I've got on stream. So I just started putting stuff down so that something would be happening on my screen, and feeling my way through that. And then that's where exactly what this was. So now I've got something to work with for the future, but that's where it is now. So
all right. I mean, every time you say that's exactly what that is, I'm like, I feel vindicated.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the reason it feels awkward is because it was awkward. So.
I had space to fill, Rhonda, and I thought you were going to say I was in the middle of a sprint and I ran out of things to write.
I mean,
So,
that's what
similar.
writing on stream actually feels like all the time. So yeah, I'm, like I said, I don't even write in coffee shops. That is not how I work. So doing this live writing on stream for the fundraiser and stuff is like, yeah. So
Yeah. I just got to keep writing. I just
yeah.
got to keep writing.
Vomit some words. Vomit some words. MacGyver says, I would love this as a prologue. I find the nice history interesting. Yeah, I wanted to write like an interesting version of what the heck is going on, guess, as I was trying to work it out. But yeah, I think I agree with Rhonda. I need to seed it through someplace. Not just, oh, here's chapter 3, the knife, the end. Yeah.
Let me tell you about the world.
Yes. Thank you for asking about my history.
Is the dark beast, is that referring to the shadow?
Probably. Where are we going?
Just up above the knife thing.
Oh, yes.
If some were true, then how much was true?
Okay. Yes.
Is she napping? So too great to contemplate in her exhaustion, so she simply dropped to the packed sand and thought of nothing at all? Is that they're done walking and
I think specifically, actually, I think I wrote that before I wrote the scene we just read, because I was on stream and I wasn't writing in order because I was desperate. So
Gotcha.
She is. So yeah, I guess in my mind, as it stands now, is they came out and then now she's sitting down, and obviously that's not going to be able to last. But
Right.
when revisions happen, that will probably be smoother.
True. I think you can, other than this first sentence, which you need to keep as written and use somewhere just like it is. Other than that, I think you can take all of chapter 3 and use it as seasoning throughout the rest of the stuff and just...
Okay.
I think it's really good, like mythology and world building for yourself, but like we said, it's just kind of too much to just happen just there all at once. So
Definitely.
and the plus side is if you skip, like if you pull out chapter 3 to be used later as salt and pepper, then chapter 2 segues just straight into chapter 4 without any work. So you're just like, it's not even going to be a big pain in the butt.
Yeah.
I mean, editing's always a pain in the butt, but it's going to be pretty easy to do that.
Yes.
There were words sounded foolish when she said them. But the lightning of the eastern horizon made it easier to say them. I think having both sentences end with said them and say them is a little bit awkward.
Okay.
Although I do get the point you're making here. Although, as the sun comes up, the shadows would also begin to appear, potentially. I know we're going for nighttime shadows more than daytime shadows, but that is a thing that... I mean, if there's a lot of sand, maybe they just went out where there's no shadows except themselves, and what I'm worried about here is not an issue, but... You know, they do go to her house and the house would cast shadows. And they don't need to know all the answers right now. They just barely encountered this thing. So they don't need to know if there's a difference between night and day or this kind of shadow and that kind of shadow. Maybe sun shadows don't count because that's shade, not shadow. I don't know. But they don't need to know, but I was curious as I was reading it, like, how come they're not worried about that thing, and how come...
In my head, direct sunlight is, those are not dangerous shadows, but artificial light or moonlight is, and that's not nailed down enough yet to be consistent, but I'm figuring that out, and then it will be more consistent.
I mean, the good news is they're also figuring it out, so...
Right. And when I figure it out, it'll be easier for them to figure out because it will actually make more sense. Yeah.
Then they'll have more clues.
Right.
This was not a productive argument, and they both knew it. And I was like, yeah, I suspect Laura's just figuring some stuff out. It's okay. And yes, still afraid. This is alternatively a good way of seasoning in some of your mythology, or you just figuring out some stuff and filling some page. And I think it works as either, and that probably sounds super contradictory, but it's a really good way for seeding in that mythology if you condense some of their arguing about the same thing a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe actually just taking out chapter 3 would do that. I would have to like pull that out and just reread it. But when I read this as chapter 2, where they introduce themselves, and then, yeah, actually, sorry, we're getting like just stream of consciousness unfiltered right out of my mouth.
Exactly as advertised. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I think I like it. I think I like it, and I think the reason that I was like, it's either this or it's that, is because of chapter 3. But if chapter 3 isn't there, it's not going to have a chance to feel
Repetitive.
Or redundant, because it's the first time I'm hearing all of these things, and I mean, they're walking all night. They got to fill the time somehow. So having them talk about things and figure it out is how it works. You might not want to point out that it's not productive.
Okay.
In the same way, you know, you probably, speaking generally, not speaking about this story, you probably don't want to point out that a character is watching something happen as opposed to participate in it. You might not want to just be like, also.
So I think what actually I was going for in this sentence or in that particular line was, they have a lot of feelings. They've just been through something, and sometimes you're venting and you're venting and you still can't stop your mouth from moving, and that's somewhat of what I was going for, but obviously didn't stick that with this, so I want to rework that.
Fair. Yeah, I mean, I got that. I did get that.
Okay. But again, if it didn't feel right, that's the feedback I need. So
yeah. I'll just. But they'd been walking and they were tired and they were afraid and they didn't know what these shadow things were and they're just trying to make sense of it. And they also they just met each other, so they don't really know each other very well. And I thought, oh, I should save it until later, but I thought you made that really clear in a really nice way later when they were talking about other cities and stuff. So in case I forget to mention it when we get there, I thought that was well done.
Yay.
I still want to know what the water horses look like.
They're hippos.
Oh! I didn't make that connection at all, but that's perfect.
Yeah. And yeah, I've been waiting for one to actually like show up close enough to describe it so that we could see that, but that hasn't happened yet. But that's where we're going when I eventually get there. So
that's awesome. Now I love them even more. Let me see your arm. I was just about to say, well, maybe we can cut this without his sash or tinderbox wouldn't stay in, so he'd returned it to her, because I was like, well, do we really need to know that? But then that made me laugh. So, yeah, we need that so that we can get the joke. And she could. Oh, see, this is nice. If they were those things, then this is the rule. So then, if she's working with this hypothesis, then she can slowly start to figure out if that's correct or not correct. Because what are we gonna tell people? I feel like this might be you figuring out some stuff as well.
What, the brackets and place name gave it away, or what? Like...
No, I do that all the time. I just meant the whole. They just argued about what are these things, and now they're arguing about, like, why aren't you just telling them that they're these things? And on one hand, that definitely shows the different cultures that they're coming from, where he's just like, no, they're obviously these things, and I don't know why you wouldn't just tell people that there's these things, because, like, do you have a better explanation? And she's like, no, we just can't tell people that we were attacked by, like, fairy tales. That's not how it works. But on the other hand, I do feel like they just argued about this thing, and now they're arguing about this thing. There's nothing wrong, and again, there's not necessarily an action item, but
we have a lot of verbal conflict for no purpose. So okay.
Yeah, and maybe if we just short if we just short this, if we just shorten this a little bit. Even just that. There you go. And then you still get to do the like, this is the in place name is actually kind of important because it foreshadows the stuff that comes later of like, I've actually been pretty far from here. I've seen a lot of stuff. So I think it's good to keep that. You're arguing to avoid the question. And someone won't guess to put up the light. He has a really good point. I thought she'd accepted that they were. Maybe I was just... I mean, she's sort of accepted that they are. Maybe she's just trying to be argumentative. And I like this stuff. So I'm willing to believe that she's just waffling on the idea, but what was it up here that made me think that she had just accepted it?
Well, she was talking about if they are these creatures from this story, then these are the rules. That's probably that was the thing. But
yeah, maybe. Yeah, she's still like she's pretty convinced that they aren't that thing. So, you know what? I'm probably totally overthinking this, actually. So yeah, let's assume I'm overthinking it because, in part, because I like the stuff that comes next, and I don't want to not have a nice segue to it like you've already got here. And in part because I'm probably just overthinking things. I know there's no buildings of gold. Yeah, and this is the part I was talking about earlier. I really love how very different the size of their worlds are. Her world is very small, and his world is very vast, and they're coming together, and they're discovering a whole different element to both of those worlds. So I assume that we're going to be pulling from both of their cultures in order to solve this problem, and I really like that. And I like that he stopped laughing as soon as he figured it out. As soon as he was like, that made him a much more, not a much more likable character. I liked him fine before. But if he had kept laughing and thought it was just like, mock worthy, I wouldn't have liked him. So this helped me, like, he was like, oh. Got
it. Awkward. Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, I thought we were laughing together. Oh, okay. Yeah.
What? Right. Oops. And he's like, no, I totally stopped. She's like, are you laughing? He's like, nope. And he's not lying. Which is barely a city. It has walls. Oh. As you can see, I have no. This conversation just works for me, and it sets the world, and it doesn't feel like it's doing it in an as you know Bob kind of way because they are just comparing experiences. It feels legitimate and sincere.
World building reveal through disagreement is like something I've discovered is one of my favorite tricks. Like I never sit down and intend to do it, but then I look at it and I was like, oh, that works. So yeah.
Handy. I don't know if she knows he came from a boat.
Oh, yeah, that's probably a good point. Maybe he told her during the night. Maybe I should mention that he told her during the night.
There you go. And if you do cut chapter 1 at some point, I don't think that it would make sense for either of these characters to tell each other that they had seen a murder the night before. But they might think of it. Kova might think of it. Like, what I saw, if you want to be vague, first at that, what I saw at the river, and now this, like, could this night get any worse? Don't actually, could this night get any worse? Because then it has to, right?
Right. Why did you say that out loud? Yeah.
Why would they have no walls? And I like that she is proud. Like she has some pride, but she's not like arrogant about her pride. She's willing to accept that, you know, there's stuff she doesn't know. And so these characters are coming together as three-dimensional people to me throughout the this chapter in particular, I think, because the first one they're just dealing with the shadows, and then this one they're sort of having a chance to interact in a real sort of way.
Okay.
That's not inspired by panic. And this is a good detail. Although she should know better than to think that they're out of danger.
She hasn't watched those movies, Rhonda. She doesn't know what it's saying it out loud.
Okay, that's fair.
She's going to retire
I'm
tomorrow and open a
taking
bakery. Yes, that's fair.
I like how she tells the truth without telling the whole truth here. And I like this detail about her mom going, oh, okay, we're not going to get out the good honey then. We'll just save that. And later with the milk, I also really like that. I assume he means because then you wouldn't have had to deal with the beasts, but it's a little unclear.
That's a really good question. I have no idea what that means. None.
Maybe you had two different stories in your head and that one matched the one that didn't make it onto the page.
Yeah, I got nothing. I don't know why he's saying. Maybe he's sleep talking. I don't know. It makes no sense to anybody.
Yeah. Mom already stopped reaching for the honey, so she doesn't need to put it back away in the box.
Good point.
And I like his reaction to her eye being like, "Is this the shadows? Is that a thing that just happened?" And I love her eye as a plot point because it could be so many different things. It could just be that that's just how her eye is, and it could be that it lets her see something different, and it could be that, like, there's just so much potential there that I'm really intrigued and looking forward to finding out. And to be clear, I wouldn't be disappointed if it was just like, this is just how my eye is, full stop. Like, some people have one blue eye and one brown eye, and I have one ghost eye and one brown eye.
And that's, I think, where we're going. I think she actually has like Waardenburg syndrome or something like that with a really, really striking one blue eye. But she's in this little podunk village that doesn't see a lot of that, right? So So they're thinking of it as a ghost eye. And so where I think this is going is that they're going to think that's relevant, but it's of course not relevant, and other things are relevant. And eventually we're actually going to get a moonblade because, I promised one. It's coming. So yeah.
Yeah, I 100% wouldn't be disappointed by that at all. I'm looking forward to finding out the answer in the story.
Okay. Me too.
And I love the fact that that her mom just gave the dude only half a cup of milk. Although in his defense, I feel the need to defend him. He just thought maybe this was the thing. He's not trying to be a jerk.
Right. Well, and I think there's the what I was going for, and there was what's actually on the page, which clearly, I don't even know what her dad's talking about, so we're not there yet. But I want that her mom's all excited because she brought a man home, and so she's like gonna get the nice honey and everything. And then she's like, oh no, you just mentioned your eye. You're not taking her. You get half a cup of milk, and so that's what I'm going for. And I realized at the beginning, and I don't think this is clear, but what I want is that she knows her mom's going to get the nice stuff out, and then she knows her mom's going to put the honey back, and then that's what actually happens. And I need to make that more clear because I'm looking at it and it doesn't come across that way. But that's what I want is she's like, yeah, mom's going to be excited, but then she's going to be mad. And so, yeah.
Oh, and look, I totally predicted that.
Yeah.
So, I 100% really want to read more of this. And I think, for a first draft, I don't feel like we actually marked this up too much. It might feel like it to you because it's your story, and it might feel like it to other people watching, but just,
well, and some of it I know when I have the rest of the plot and I know how that's going to fit back together, I am going to go back and this will be easier to smooth out because I'll have all those answers, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's you're still figuring things out, and that's clear in some places, but I do think that it's a strong first draft. You've got characters that are developing into three-dimensional people that I care about. There are multiple plot hooks that I am interested in. I'm starting to get an idea of the world, and I'm interested in learning more about the world. And the world feels like a very specific place. It is not everywhere or any town, USA or whatever. It's specific and interesting. And to be clear, locations in the USA can be just fine. They just can't be any town USA. It shouldn't be interchangeable. And this world doesn't feel interchangeable. It feels like a place which actually exists and actually has mythology and people and creatures and vocabulary and there's stuff going on that isn't just about these shadows. The reader doesn't know about all of that stuff yet if you cut chapter 1.
Mm-hmm.
But it's there, and it sort of bleeds through a little bit even in just these first few chapters. And I think it's a really strong start.
Yay! Well,
and I would 100% keep reading more.
Yay! Okay, good. And I am so glad that you took it apart on stream for us. So, yeah. So actually, let's open up because we didn't have a lot of questions coming in. So I just want to make sure that people know that now is a good time to ask questions. And I was going to say something else that is gone now. I wonder what that was. Yeah. I was going to say something quite relevant. I don't know. Okay. But
you'll think about it after the stream.
Oh, totally. I'll be all done. Let's see. Can I get my commands to work, please? No? Well, that's interesting. Oh, there we go. Okay. Everything was just
I was like,
delayed.
I broke it.
So what was I going to say? So I'm going to finish this story and edit it, and then that will be out, and that will be available for anybody who's donated to the fundraiser, and there are giveaways, and all of that information is on my blog in the chat, which is over there-ish. I think. Where's the chat? Chat. I don't know. Wherever they keep it, it's over around. Find the chat.
I will be happy to volunteer to edit it for you if you'd like when it's finished.
Thank you. I didn't even put her up to that on stream or anything. So, yeah, and that'd be great. And yeah, I'm going to be giving away this cool knife, and I've got other things to give away, and there'll be all that. And also, KT Ivanrest has donated and claimed naming the cute animal mascot character. We have one of those coming up. And so if you're dying to name a place or a character or something,
Nice.
contact me on the blog, and we can make that happen. And yeah, so that's where we are. Are there any questions? Oh, good question from MacGyver. When you edit, do you keep an original copy also?
I do. I changed the file name that I received. You may have seen it when I was sharing the screen. Actually, I just add -RP to the end of it so that it shows that it's Rhonda Parrish's edits. And if I'm editing for other people, then obviously, hopefully, they also have the original copy as well. So when I'm editing my own things, I just change it to draft 2 or draft 3, and I never name anything final.
Is the kiss of final for real final. Yeah, all those. And I want to mention too, like if I have submitted a story and then Rhonda's editing it for the anthology and all, or whatever, all of those are suggested edits in words, comments, or track changes and all that. And then it comes back to me and I can accept or reject those changes. Or sometimes we end up with a little thread going back and forth on, no, it really needs to be, this is why, but I said, whatever.
But this is modifying that and not this.
Right. And, but don't you remember, Faye can't tell lies, so he really needs to say, whatever. In almost all professional circumstances, I would say in any professional circumstance, the editor is not going to change your work without, you seeing that and improving that. Does it happen? Yes. Is it industry professional? No. So, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Which is why when we were in the middle of that, my track changes was suddenly off. I was like, oh, that's not okay.
Yeah.
Because the author needs to be able to clearly and easily see when I've marked something up and, I was going to say not try and sneak anything in there, but even unintentionally, not unintentionally change anything where they can't see it.
So, but yeah, it's really nice then because I love getting edits back, and that might make me weird, but it's yay, somebody else helped make this better, right? And then so I actually really love getting them back. Laura, do you keep 2 copies also? Maybe, it depends, and that's not a great answer, but it's true. So for something like a story that I've submitted and Rhonda's now editing for an anthology and sends it back, all of those go back and forth in the Word doc, and I have somewhere the original document that I submitted that's not undergoing the edit process. For my personal work, a lot of times you can't tell if it's draft 2 or draft 6. It's just a file that says story name. But I don't tend to stress about how many drafts I do. I just work with it until I like it, which could be short or long. And there are other people who have a strict, I do a 3 revision process, and this is my process, and I do this on the first revision and this on the second revision and this on the third. And so for them, tracking those drafts makes sense. For me, I'm just like, I don't know, I still hate you. Go sit in a corner and I'll see you tomorrow. So I don't care about that. So it depends on where the revision is happening and for whom, for me.
Yeah, for my own work, I definitely do not have those sort of strict passes, and oftentimes my thing will say story title draft. It's usually a date, not a number. It'll say September 2020. But actually, I've been working on the September 2020 file for a year now, so it should say. But when I'm editing for when I'm editing for novels or freelance stuff, and to a lesser extent for anthologies, because anthologies are short stories, so they're slightly different. It's usually 3 passes. So the first pass is substantive edits, and that's any sort of big picture, like maybe you should cut this chapter out, or I don't think that this is necessarily where the story begins, like those sorts of things. And the second run is the line edit, and that's where you're tweaking sentences and making specific word suggestions and changes. We sort of did a hybrid of those today. And the third one is one that I hope that my publisher has somebody else do that's not me, and that is the final copy edit proofread, where you're looking for objectively incorrect things. And commas are kind of my kryptonite, so I like to not be the one doing that. I like for somebody else. And also because I've read it multiple times by then, so I've got huge blind spots, and it's easy for me to miss things.
Right. Yeah, and I do occasionally, like if I'm working in Scrivener, you can just save a copy to archive in Scrivener. So, I do occasionally throw that in there, but that's definitely not like a number of, I couldn't tell you how many drafts I do, it's just kind of thing. So, I don't throw anything away. And if I get rid of a few words, that's fine. But as far as like, oh, here's a chapter that doesn't belong, nope, that goes into trashed scenes in Scrivener. And then if I need it later, I have it. Or if I need, bonus content for my Patreon, there it is, or, whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah. MacGyver says, I was just asking as I have editing to do, but maybe I should have another draft to do all editing and keep the original to see where the story came from. That can be fun too, though, just to be like, oh, here's where, look at this process. Look how much this changed or something. So, yeah.
I sort of only tangentially related, but I do that with D&D characters. I like to have, I'm mostly playing online these days, so it's easier than when you had like 3-dimensional sheets that you filled out all the time. But I like to keep backups of every level so that I can go back and see how things developed. And I can see how that could be a lot of fun to do for a story. I don't think that I have ever actually gone back through my drafts to see how things have changed like that, but it could be an interesting exercise.
I mean, stuff can be significant. So I've told on myself before, but Shard and Shield, it's epic fantasy, I think published at 130, it's published at 140,000 words. And I cut 60,000 words out of that manuscript, which first of all is a lot. Like I cut a book out of my book, right? But also it freaking needed it. Like it was, but being able to say I cut 60,000 words out of a manuscript, I mean, if nothing else, it's a lovely reminder to myself how important revisions are. So yeah. So okay,
yeah, that's pretty epic.
It was a lot. It needed it. It like a lot. So yeah. So. Yeah, we've been here for 2 hours, so thank you so much, Rhonda, for giving us.
Crazy.
Yeah, I know, right? But for giving us that time, I really appreciate it. And everybody, thanks for coming out. And generally, I'm on every Tuesday about this time ish. So yeah, I'll see people in the future, and I don't want to keep people hanging on to just listen to me emote about how many words I've cut out of my draft. So yes, these are the things that I have done that were not necessarily great at the time, but maybe they worked out. So yes, you too have a good night, MacGyver, and anybody else out there. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for participating and donating. And I just really appreciate you. So big hand for Rhonda. Yay. And that's it. I didn't like write us a closing speech or anything. I guess that's it. We're just done. So yeah, but yeah, if you guys have other questions or things you want to see, let me know, because this is the kind of thing I love doing on the stream. That's useful and helpful. So okay,
and fun.
Yay. Okay.
And fun. Thank you.
Bye everybody. Good night, Rhonda. Good night, everybody.
Bye.